This video shouldn't be that long, but I had like a theory, an idea that there's a possibility that, I mean, besides the fact of there actually being giant humans um, in ancient times, way, way back in the past, which is still, possible, of course. But it was the fact that I felt that it's like um, more likely what really happened was that um, they created golems or giant robots or Gundams, if you want to call them, and they created big mechanical statues, right? Robots essentially that they can control man and be able to do stuff. Like here is a depiction of like a really big, tall person helping build the pyramids, which would be very useful if you had something big, right? Something big building something. Here's a depiction of the idea of like, you know, big humans lifting up the obelisk. And if you see over here in the picture, you see small humans to stretch. See, I can stretch that in, right? You see how big that obelisk is compared to the humans. So it will take a lot of humans to try to lift this up. But in this image, one giant humanoid thing, right, can pick it up and put it in place. And then there's two of them here, putting up an obelisk. And they're clearly the height of the obelisk. So let's say the obelisk is 40 feet tall. That means these are 40-foot humanoids, people. This could be an artistic, representation. Like this could just be, just depicting like, oh yeah, these people that weren't big, just, were involved in putting up the pillars. But they, instead of drawing them small, they just drew them the same size as the pillars, just for artistic purposes, right? Not that they were actually giant. But if we take it literal, then they could actually be giant. They actually could have been big just for the sake of being big, naturally. But another possibility, which is the one I'm going with, is the fact that, especially in ancient Egypt, they had the ability to carve and create, and they made face masks. Think about it. They made masks. So I could find. Go back again. See if I can find a face mask. Go back one more time. Okay. You know how they make coffins and stuff like that? They carved the face of the pharaoh and made a mask, and they put the mask on the pharaoh. Of course, when I saw something like that. Oh, okay, here it is. Here's something. You see these like big statues and stuff like that, and you see that giant coffin is bigger than that guy. Over here, let's try to zoom in. Like you see, it's a big coffin. And then the guy next to him is half the size. So let's say that guy is 6 feet. So this coffin is for someone who's 12 feet. 12 feet high and then thick as fuck, right? You see how these statues are very big. But what if there was things this big that was that tall, that were actually alive, or they were able to create, or what if they figured out a way to grow giants, right? The ability to do some genetic splicing, and they were able to cause and induce gigantism, which is a disease. Most humans in modern history have had a case of gigantism. Andre the Giant is a wrestler. He had gigantism, so he was big just because of genetics. So they probably found a way to breed, maybe a form of inbreeding, like incest breeding or something, to actually cause that type of mutation, and then you created these giant humanoids through incest breeding, right? We breed animals. Why wouldn't we think that in ancient times they would have bred humans just to create giant humans on purpose? That could have been a possibility. And I mean, whatever happened to them after that is, it's hard to say. A lot of times there are depictions that smaller humans killed, and a lot of these giants. So it could have been a possibility that after the giants served their purpose, then they were exterminated because they were viewed as just a property, a item, a tool, and since their usefulness is over, now they need to be disposed of, which sounds fucked up, right? But that literally could happen. I mean, you hear stuff about like human sacrifices in the past, and it's like, okay, why are we doing that? Why are we killing humans? What's the purpose? Why are we killing humans for? There has to be a reason for it, right? You want to think that there's a logical reason for it. Like here, you see some small people, and then you see a really big person. Now, this could just be a way of depicting that somebody is more important than everyone else. So this is a very big, important person, and they're surrounded by small, lesser important people. Or these could be children. This could be an adult. That's another way this could be depicted. That those are children, serving their father, drinks or whatever, or bathing him. This kind of looks like it's probably being bathed, or some type of ceremony or something. Whatever it is. It could be that, it could be children, which is why you see big people and little people next to each other, is that the kids are the little people. Or that these are actual giant people next to regular adult males. But it's just an interesting idea of thinking that there could have been giant robots, largely made of like probably stone combined with wood and other things, metals as well, and they were fashioned in such a way that it would look something like this. Like I use this statue image, right? Like, let's say this actually is something that was found buried, and just look at it. They were able to create things that look like this. So what's to say that they couldn't have made it mobile, make it work? It could have operated similar to like a puppet. They could have used strings and pulleys and stuff like that to try to get that moving. Basically make it a robot and get it to move and do things. That could have been a possibility. So that's the idea I was thinking of. Like, there could actually been giant people, and as you can see, there has been people that were really, really big because of gigantism. But there could actually been giant like robots, right? The fact that they could have created, because I think that if I went back in time, right, if I would lived in the past, what would I do, right? Would I create, invent things to make life easier? Like I always like seeing these scales. That's a theory for another time about scales and stuff, and using water to create electricity, to even move things. Could imagine a big giant robot that runs on water, just because the water is moving through the piping, like pipe systems, moving buckets and levers and gears, and literally having a giant robot moving around. Of course, you will make it look humanoid, so that's why you wouldn't see something that looks like like the kind of robots we have now. Like look at it. Like, they put a lot of time and effort to carve and makes something look human. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to kind of resemble it, right? So them drawing it on and carving them on temples and stuff like that, and pyramids and stuff, would be just one way. Right, let's use this image. It's just a way of them depicting, like, they will depict it as if these things were living. They wouldn't waste time trying to make it look mechanical. Like I said, like, you got these depictions of like just big giant human people. But for all we know, that these were not actually human. Like here, this one kind of looks like this person is naked. Kind of looks like it's the body of a man, but you don't see a genitalia, so it's I mean, you don't need genitalia to lift heavy things and move things around. So this could be a machine, which explains the body type is kind of male, but there's no a male genitalia. So it's a possibility that that could just be a big robot. But another possibility, especially when you look at this other picture, where the fact you see these big people, and they have like cloth wrapped around the waist, which would be only useful if you're trying to hide, genitalias. So why would you hide the genitalia of a robot if it didn't have it? And why would you even build a robot with genitalia? When robots can't reproduce unless there's some genetic reason for it. The possibility that this is more of gigantism than it is robotics. It could be just more about breeding giant humans. That could literally been a thing. Somebody could have literally figured that out long time ago, that through certain breeding practices. And a lot of times I do notice that there's depiction of sexuality. You see depictions of male figures with male genitalia on carvings and paintings and stuff, and it's like, okay, there's some, they obviously had sex back in the day, so that's the thing. And the possibility, I've even seen some carvings about about giving birth and stuff like that, like a doctor giving birth, not the doctor giving birth, but delivering the baby. So depictions of stuff like that, like depending on these pictures here, this is probably depicting the concept of breeding giant people. So there'd probably be a possibility of tall men, tall women. They're probably, let's say they were like 6 feet tall, and then they had to reproduce, and then their offsprings reproduced with somebody else's offspring who also was tall, and so that way both their offsprings would be both groups of male and female couples reproducing tall children, and then have those children get together and reproduce, and then try to create a big a big line a big line of taller. So they're trying to go beyond 6 feet, try to create 7-foot babies, for example, 8-foot, not babies, but they would grow up into adulthood and be that big. They were trying to induce gigantism, and that was a possibility. There could literally been a person's job in ancient Egypt whose job was to create giants, essentially, through the process of breeding. So that person would have been very knowledgeable when it comes to sex and just the human biology. You would kind of consider them like a scientist or a geneticist or biologist, and their job in ancient time was to make sure that they can produce giants. And it probably was for the purpose of having them as a labor force. Instead of having a whole bunch of small people do work, why not just have a whole bunch of giant people do work? So why not create giants, especially if you have the ability to? If you have the ability to deliberately create big, strong people, then why wouldn't you, right? So it could just be a form of genetic manipulation. Then there's stuff out there that's like, oh yeah, there's giants, there's people out there. I thought I was gonna see some skulls and stuff. I clicked on the wrong thing. Oh well, whatever. Like here is like yeah, this looks really big, because this is as big as the and again, like, this could literally be what I was talking about, gigantism. Like, this could, this person could probably be like 14 feet, maybe 15 feet tall. You know what I mean? So if I think about it, like, say 12, yeah, close to 15 feet tall. This looks like this person could be approximately 15 feet tall. essentially twice the height of like a 6 foot or 7 foot man. So that's possible that this person is like close to 14 to 15 feet, and this and these are the types of people that you were able to use. Right, here's a picture of somebody, a big Asian person, compared to all his other Asian people. We already take advantage of people who are 6 feet and make them basketball players, for example. So why wouldn't they, highly value tall, big, strong people in the past and deliberately try to breed them? Here's some skeleton remains. Don't know if those are giant remains, because size. You need something to compare the size. So it's hard to tell if those are giants or not. But you get the idea. I'm not gonna keep going on and repeating myself over and over again about big and giants. And it's just the idea that maybe there was Gundams, right? There was essentially big mechanical humanoid looking structures, figures, statues, whatever you want to call them, like in this image. And obviously people who have the skills to carve big things like this, like sarcophagus and stuff like that, no way they could not have created a big mechanical humanoid looking machine and use that as like a crane system, use it as a forklift system, because they'll have arms that can pick heavy things up. And that's my thought, my current thought, because of course before it was about what is it called, the scales, using scales to lift blocks and stuff like that, and use it like a crane system. So I'll make a video about that eventually, about the possibility of using cranes and water falling and making things move, mechanics, right? Machinery, basically. The idea of like, oh, they use machinery and they use water at a high speed. They have water squeezed out of a nozzle or a hole really, really fast, and they were able to cut rocks with that, and stone and stuff like that, and that's how they were able to cut stone and be able to build whatever they wanted to build using high powered water. I mean, like, you could look over here and you look at the back, the flat areas behind these big statues, and you see like a lot of lines and stuff like that of different shades of color of the rock. It could be a possibility that all that was cut. It was just a whole bunch of water shot at high speed, just cutting through that rock like butter, just to make this. You gotta think about the height and how wide and big and tall this is. It's like, how did they do this unless they were tall, like tall giants, right? With chisels, giant metal pieces, right? And chiseling away and creating this. Or there was a whole bunch of scaffoldings, right? They built a whole bunch of like ladders and shit and just did all this by hand. Was that a possibility? That seems very extreme, especially to try to create something like this. This would take many, many years and many, many generations doing this the hard way. So I believe that they're not dumb. So they would have figured a way to do this the easy way, faster way. I know human nature enough to know that, yeah, we humans are lazy. So we will use our high IQ, right, our intellect, I should say, our intellect, and find ways to make things easier. So they must have figured out how to use water to cut stone, to use water to move wheels and make those wheels, have some type of, metal blade that can cut and grind through the stone, or use diamond and have diamond tip blades, or diamond tip stone wheels and stuff, and then just have them cut and grind through the stone and stuff like that. So they found ways. They figured out how to how to do this. If they can do this, we can't discount the possibility that they either genetically created giant people to make, to make this type of work easy to do, or they made giant robots that allow them to control and maneuver and create these types of structure. And then after they were done using them to create this stuff, they just recycle them, which will be the smart thing to do. Why not recycle them? You already got the use out of them, especially if you built them to specifically build something. You don't need them for anything else. It's like, well, we built this to specifically build this temple or these statues or whatever. We don't need them to do anything else. So let's take them apart. Another thing I thought is that a lot of this work, a lot of this stonework, a lot of this technology used to create a lot of this stuff was actually borrowed from other places. So other parts of the world came here with technology that they created, helped the Egyptians create all this stuff, and then they just went back home. Which is why we don't find all the cool tech and equipment that was used to create these things, and archaeologists are like, how did they make these things with just chisels and rocks? This don't make sense. It's because you're thinking that they actually had their own equipment to create this. You didn't take into account that maybe they had other people visit and help them create this stuff. They had construction crews that came from around the world and came here and built shit, and they went back home and took the tools with them, obviously, so they can build shit somewhere else. So then you literally have architects, construction workers, builders, people whose livelihood is building shit like this, and then they went around, the world and built shit. That's why you see Roman architect in different places. That's why you see some Egyptian stuff in other places that ain't Egypt, because you have people whose job was literally to create shit like this, and they traveled the world and created shit. This is why it's hard to find, what cool technology was used for this, because the technology, is somewhere else in the world. So you have to find out where that technology is. It's like, where is all that cool technology that was used to create the pyramids and these sculptures and stuff like that? Where is it? It's not gonna find it in Egypt. There's a possibility you're not gonna find it in Egypt. And that's the end of the video.